Alright. Hello, everyone. It's I, Wacky Anime What If here. I'm here to do What If Issei was betrayed and got Carnage, Part 2. Okay, so Issei has just woken up after Carnage has literally forcibly merged into Issei. Issei's sanity is slowly returning a little, but it's also spiking at some points. Issei is feeling more rage, more anger, and his sanity is just increasing a little bit. And Issei can feel different. He feels much more rage now than he did before. But Issei's trying to calm himself down because, well, if he wants to get revenge and everything, he needs to have a calm state of mind. So he manages to calm himself down after a while. And Drake sees this and thinks Issei's gotten a little bit better, he's a little bit more stable. I guess I don't have to change hosts. And he's thinking this in a part of Issei's mind which Issei cannot really sense yet. And Issei decides that he's just going to go home. So Issei just goes home, just walks home like nothing happened, and walks into his house and realizes, oh, the bodies were still there. Because he sees his mom and dad still on the floor. So all he does is lift up his mom, go to the kitchen, and starts chopping the fingernails out. Just removes them, rips them out. And Drake is very disgusted at this. And he starts, cutting them and all that, cutting the flesh off, and just leaving it to where only the skeleton remains. And with all the human flesh, he makes it into a meal. He does not eat the meal, but he puts it in the fridge. And he does the same to his dad. And he ends up literally going to the backyard at night, that same day, digging a hole in the backyard. And he ends up dumping the skeletons in, and just seals it back up. Just puts more dirt on it, starts to bury it. And the neighbors, he waited till the neighbors were actually out eating dinner, because they were having a neighbor meeting and stuff about Issei's recent behavior. And Issei goes back into his house and goes upstairs and decides, I'm going to go to sleep now. He lays on his bed, goes to sleep, but he's having violent flashbacks when he's asleep about all the betrayal, the abuse, the hatred and anger he felt, the pain, and just all of it rushes to him at once. And Issei just is furious. He's screaming in anger while watching all this. But he's in a dark room watching everything unroll out, not being able to do anything. And this figure appears behind him and says, "You look like you need some help. Why don't I help you unleash true carnage upon those who decided to betray you? Those who did nothing and watched as this happened to you. Those who couldn't give a damn about you. Those who abused you. And those who think you're powerless and weak." And Issei turned around and saw nothing. And Carnage just appears right behind him again and says, "If you need me, call out my name. My name is Carnage. And I have bonded with you. I have saved you from your demise. And I will now be living inside of you. Think of that as my rent." And Issei wakes up and ends up saying, what was that? And he's panicking. He's having a panic attack because of all the anger, the hatred, and all the influx of emotions all at once. But he calms down. And Drake literally sees the panic expression on his face and saw the huge skyrocket of emotions. And Drake is getting more concerned about his partner, because his partner is he can sense how he's thinking. He's thinking more violently, more rashly, and thinking a lot more about revenge and his own hatred and how he can enact it. And Drake's already sensing something's off, but Drake wants to stay with Issei because, well, he understands why he's like this, and he wants to help him and be a true friend to him. Which Issei just is still panicking, and Drake, it just calmed him down a little bit more. Issei was trying to calm down already, but Drake helps successfully calm him down. So Drake speaks to Issei and says, "So, partner, what do you want to do? If you want to get revenge, I'll help you." And Issei says, "I do want to get revenge. At any means, I don't care what I have to do, I will enact it. I don't care if my morals change, I don't care if the world's against me, I don't care if anyone that's stronger than me tries to go towards me, I will destroy them. I will unleash true hell upon this world that has forsaken me," is what Issei said, with determination. And Drake already feels that what he's saying is true. Drake is very worried, but he's also happy for him. He's worried because he said to the world, meaning that's not just the people that betrayed him. No, it's to everyone worldwide. And this made Drake flinch a lot and start thinking more if he should stay with Issei or go. And right when he's thinking this, Carnage pops out of Issei as a head and says, "Hey there, partner." And Issei looks at him and just is freaking out. Like, freaking out. He just starts screaming and says, "What the fuck are you?" And Carnage says, "My name is not what the fuck are you. My name is Carnage." And Issei says, What are you?" And he says, "I'm what people call a symbiote in my world. I was transported here by unknown means. And I didn't have a host. But I sensed all your anger, your hatred, your pure insanity at the time, and I figured you'd be the perfect host. So I hope you don't disappoint me. And I saved you as my rent for staying in your body, like I said before." And he tells Issei that he'll help him in his act of revenge, and anything more if he wants. Which Carnage already knows that Issei's going to want more than just revenge. He feels more like Issei is a kindred spirit to him, and that they were bonded by fate. So Carnage already senses that he's not just going to stop at revenge. And Carnage is smiling, and this unsettles Issei. But Issei says, "What can you do exactly?" And Carnage just passes all of his memories to Issei. Drake does not see the memories, even though he's inside of his body, because he just connects it to Issei only. Think of it like this. If Issei's the laptop, and Carnage is the charger, and, well, let's say Drake is the headphones that are plugged into it. They're connecting at different points, and they're connecting into the computer at different points. One is supplying the power, one of them supplying the actual hearing. Think of Carnage as the main connector, the actual power source. Because Issei no longer has his actual pieces. Instead, he's bonded with Carnage. So Carnage has more influence inside of Issei's body. So he's able to do this without alerting Red, Drake, on his actual powers and all of that. Which Issei is sensing all of the things that Carnage has done. And he doesn't like it, but he also is very impressed by the power. And this is a lot more power than what Drake can pull out of his balance breaker. It's much more versatile. So Issei just says, so how do I control your power? There's always some type of catch with this. With Drake, I have to unleash a lot of emotion. And I have to learn how to perfect my balance breaker and all that. So how about you? And Carnage says, there's no strings attached. You can use my power anytime you want. Just try it. And Issei tries to make a blade out of his hand, and he does it successfully. There's no drawbacks or anything, which astonishes Issei. And Drake is also astonished. But he's also very scared. He doesn't understand what power this is. It's not magic. And Issei's body's literally forging into that. And Drake can't sense the change that will occur in Issei's body, even though he's a part of it. Issei decides to get up and go to school. So Issei gets up, opens the door, goes down the stairs, and is about to head to school. Already has his uniform on. Then he realizes it's not really such a smart idea to go to school. But he also wants to, alert Rias that she's a failure, that she failed to kill him, and he's back, and he's gonna get revenge. But Drake says that that's not a smart idea, while Carnage says, just go in there and rip their heads off. And Issei is agreeing more with Carnage, but decides it's not really that good after a little bit of thinking. He decides to go back into his house and plan things out. And he's thinking he needs to master more of the balance breaker and more of Carnage's power. Which he decides to leave his house and go into a forest. Once he goes into the forest, he decides to fully transform into the Carnage suit. Which he transforms into Carnage. And Carnage isn't in control. Carnage is just watching him use his power. He could take control if he wanted to, but he wants to see Issei work with it. Just to see his creativity. And Issei decides to immediately make tendrils out of his back and pierce into the trees. Because he realized if he's going to fight against devils and angels or fallen angels or any of them who gets in his way, he's going to have to get more mobility. They can fly. And from what he can see from Carnage, I don't think that's possible, is what he's thinking. So he just pierces into the trees and starts climbing them very quickly, trying to see his reaction speed. And it's surprisingly fast, but he wants to go faster. So he starts launching himself from tree to tree, bouncing off of it, piercing into them and making little motions that are almost astonishingly too fast for Drake to catch up with. Drake is seeing him bounce off trees like a true martial artist would. And Drake sees him do this and is very impressed. But once Issei had the suit on, he noticed that Issei's mentality changed a lot. He's getting more angry, more aggressive. And then, after repeatedly using the suit for so long, he starts to boil up with rage, and he starts just punching trees, trying to use this as a pretense of testing his strength. He punches the trees and knocks down 4 trees with one punch. And he just uses his arm as a blade and starts cutting the trees down. He has cut down almost an entire forest with 4 swings of his blade arm. And yeah, Drake already senses this isn't going to go well for him. But he wants to still stay with Issei. But he's conflicted. So he's thinking more on this. And Carnage can sense that Drake is thinking of betraying Issei. So Drake is thinking of this. And Carnage whispers in Issei's mind in a portion where he makes like a private channel where Drake does not hear. And he says, Drake's going to betray you. And Issei says, no, he wouldn't do such a thing. He's been with me for thick and thin. He won't do that. And then Carnage says, what if he does, though? And Issei says, how about this? If he does, you can kill him. And he says this in a serious voice, because he's starting to believe a little bit that Drake would. I mean, Reyes did it. Why wouldn't anyone else? So he goes home, goes up the stairs, lays down on the bed, and is thinking about how destructive Carnage's power was and drifts asleep, while thinking of vengeance and what happened to him. All that driving him. And, yeah, Drake senses Issei's going slightly more insane, more unhinged. And Drake is trying to leave now, because he senses if Issei has Carnage's power and Drake's power consistently boost the amount of damage it does, then no one's safe. Not even other dragons. The dragons that are left are not safe. The world itself may not be safe. Because Drake notices while peeking into Issei's mind slightly that Issei doesn't just desire revenge. He desires destruction, just chaos and carnage everywhere. He wants to slaughter everything he sees. He wants to be that strong that he can just do whatever he wants. And be damned the consequences. And Drake, he just up and leaves while Issei's asleep. He tries to leave. But Carnage, in the mental scape, when Drake is trying to leave, Carnage is forming inside. And is right behind Great Drake. Great Big Bad Drake. And, yeah, Drake notices this. He flings his tail and cuts Carnage in half and says, "You're too weak to stop me from leaving." And Carnage just multiplies into two. His lower half just regenerates, and his upper half regenerates the legs. There's two of them now. And Drake sees this and his eyes go wide. And all of a sudden, Carnage pops out over 50,000 tentacles out of him. Because in the mental scape, in the soul scape, I'm going to tell you, Carnage is a lot stronger than Drake. Carnage is a symbiote. He relies on the actual host. And he's been born that way. Drake was never born that way. He was made that way. So, Carnage's strength in the soulscape, where they're both living, is a lot more potent. So there's over 500,000. It was 50,000 at first, but that's going over 500,000 tentacles. They're all rushing at Drake. Drake is trying to fly away to the exit. There's one light that leads out of Issei. He's trying to fly towards it. He's almost making it. And then Carnage pierces all through his wings. Tears his wings off. And Drake is trying to rush. He's trying to, crawl towards the exit. But no. Carnage was not going to let him slide. But all the 500,000 tentacles all form into one giant blade. And then Carnage chomps right at Drake. And the blade immediately strikes down onto Drake and goes deep into his back. And Drake can feel the pain in all of this. He can feel this blade go straight through his bones, all the way out to the other end. And Drake is bleeding out and is very, very scared for his life. Drake was almost at the exit. He's still crawling, even though there's a giant blade in his back. And right when he's about to reach, he's like an inch away. Carnage literally has all the tentacles grab him and launch him all the way deeper and deeper into Issei's soul. Into his soulscape. And Drake is starting to succumb to blood loss. But no. Carnage makes it to where Drake regenerates. He injects a little bit of himself and regenerates Drake. And Drake is confused. No, Carnage doesn't want him having a painless death. What he thinks is a painless death. So he makes all the tentacles, all 500,000 tentacles, pierce into Drake all at once. They're going through his ribs, his liver, all of his organs, his stomach, his mouth. They're going out of his cheeks. They're going out of his tail. They're going straight through all of them. except for his heart, leaving just his heart and his brain. And he's still surviving off of just those two because of his regeneration as a dragon, but it's excruciatingly agony. Then Carnage gets bigger and just starts mowing down on Drake, starts sinking his teeth into Drake and munching on him, and starts devouring him alive. And all the tentacles that were piercing into him start turning into little mouths, and they start eating him from the inside out. And Drake is dying, and he's screaming in agony. And all after a few hours of this repeatedly happening, Drake is no longer there. Drake is completely dead. Drake has just died. The sacred gear is still there, though, because Carnage, when he devoured Drake, he gained Drake's abilities. So he has the abilities of the boosted gear. But Drake is no more. It's just Carnage now. And Carnage sees that he's the main power that Issei will draw on. And Carnage knows he can warp Issei more, make him more violent, more destructive, more angry, and much more amusing to him. So, the next day, when Issei wakes up and looks at Drake and asks Drake, "Are you alright?" Because usually Drake would talk to him in the morning. And Carnage says Drake tried to leave. I did as you instructed. And Issei was furious that Drake would try to leave him alone with Carnage, an unknown entity. And he just hated this. But when Carnage mentioned that he killed him, he didn't mourn or anything. He was like, he was a friend, but anyone that betrays me deserves it. I hope he died a painful death. And Carnage says, oh, of course he did. And they both start chuckling. Issei's personality is changing more and more. Find out on the next part what will happen. Will Reese's Barrage catch wind of this? Will Albion... What would happen when he fights Albion again? And you have to find out much more in the next part of what if Issei was betrayed and got Carnage. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you like it, because you guys smashed the like goal on the previous one. Also, what if Issei got betrayed and had sea monster powers? That will be coming out later on. It's just I'm literally slumped right now, kind of like in a block of like what to do next. Also, the other what ifs that you people suggested, I will do them at a later date. It's just I have to figure out how to implement the stories. Okay, so goodbye everyone, and I hope you have a good